Mano a mano. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start with today's big standoff. President Barack Obama and former Governor Mitt Romney each making his case to lead the country the next 4 years. Obama showed us a choice between his economic policies and Romney's. He says that his policies are based on tax fairness and a bigger commitment to education, energy, infrastructure. He wants people trained for jobs. He wants government to put people to work. He wants the financial big shots on Wall Street regulated in the interest of the people. Obama says his opponent Romney would just give us a rerun of what we got from W. Tax cuts for the big corporations and wealthy people. The pullback of regulation on Wall Street. Romney's basic argument today is that he'll do what big business thinks ought to be done. Let's hear from former Governor Ed Rendell of Pennsylvania, author of a great book, A Nation of Wusses, and former Republican National Chairman Michael Steele, both are MSNBC analysts. Gentlemen, we brought on the heavyweights today, if you don't mind me saying so, to address this question. Well, today, President Obama, as I said, clearly tried to turn this election, this is the key word, into a choice. Not a referendum on how the economy is doing, a choice between two candidates to lead the country for the next 2 years, a choice between his policies that pull us back from the brink and Mitt Romney and his allies in Congress. Let's listen.
Governor Romney and the Republicans who run Congress believe that if you simply take away regulations and cut taxes by trillions of dollars, the market will solve all of our problems on its own. If you agree with that, you should vote for them. I believe we need a plan for better education and training, and for energy independence, and for new research and innovation, for rebuilding our infrastructure. And if you agree with me, if you believe this economy grows best when everybody gets a fair shot, and everybody does their fair share, and everybody plays by the same set of rules, then I ask you to stand with me for a second term as president.
Well, here's the question. He doesn't want the American people to say, how do you feel? How's the economy doing? They want to say, what do you think of the two programs of the two candidates?
Well, I think it's a smart strategy if the president can do it. I think he did a good job today structuring it. He went real quick through what he inherited and what the economy looked like when he became president, the progress that's made. And I thought he did a very good job in Ohio, Chris, of emphasizing the manufacturing comeback. 500,000 new manufacturing jobs in the last 27 months. Best manufacturing growth since 95. And then he went to the future and compared his plan to Romney's. And I think in the end, that's what the American people are going to care about. They're going to hear all the charges about records in the past. Presidents failed. Romney wasn't a good governor, all that stuff. They're going to be interested in what are the plans of the candidates to get us out of this. And I think the president has a more viable plan, a plan that can jumpstart the economy more quickly, and a plan that has a chance to work. The Romney plan, as he pointed out, Bill Clinton said it's the Bush tax cuts on steroids. Yeah. And I think that's a very good, if he can make the election about the contrast for the future, I think he's got a real good shot.
Well, I guess the question is, Michael, whether he can win with the argument. I started in a hole. A real mess I was given here in 2008. This guy wants to basically rerun exactly the same policies of tax cuts for the wealthy, deregulation of the financial sector, getting rid of Glass-Steagall, all that stuff.
Right.
And my question to you, and it's a tough one, give me the profound differences between the presidential candidate Mitt Romney and former President George W. Bush when it comes to economic policy. What's the difference between the two of them?
Chris, that is an irrelevant comparison.
Well, no, but it's my question for you.
But I'm not answering that question simply because
well,
it's
irrelevant. I know
why,
and everybody watching knows why you won't answer it.
Well, I'm being very honest about it because, again, you're doing exactly what Obama wants us to do, and you're a good sycophant for it, and that's looking backwards.
Well, that's pretty rough. What do you call a guy that refuses to answer a question?
Well,
is he a sycophant from the other side?
You gave the governor the time. Let me have the time.
Yeah, but my question began. I preceded his time with a question.
This isn't about.
I preceded your time with a question. My question to you is, give me the differences between W and Romney.
You give me the differences between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. That's what this election is about. This is not about George Bush. Why are we talking about George Bush? We're talking about Barack Obama and his policies that have not created the jobs, that has kept unemployment stagnant, that still has some 10 to 15 million people unemployed looking for work who have just given up. What I heard today, and the governor's right, the first part of his speech began to set the narrative. But then the latter half or even two-thirds of it fell off into this sort of defensive mode. And that's what the people are going to focus on, is that split vision between these two candidates running for the presidency of the United States. It has nothing to do with George Bush.
Let me try one more time. If you bought a house and you discovered it had termites, and you found the electricity didn't work, and every time you plugged the toaster in, you got a short, and by the way, there was a fire because of the bad electrical system, everything was wrong with that house, wouldn't you blame the guy you bought the house from?
Well, yeah, and the person.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Right.
That's what we're doing here.
Excuse me.
We're blaming the guy we bought the house from.
Excuse me. Hold up. There's a new owner in the house. His name is Barack Obama.
Yeah, he got stuck. It's called buying a lemon. Let me go to the governor. I mean, you want to fight with this guy? I'm just moderating this. I want to ask the question.
You're going to give this analogy.
I want to ask the governor the same question. All right, go ahead. Let him make the case.
No, and I think Michael has a point, but I think you bring up President Bush and actually the last 60 years of economic growth in this country, because the prescription that Governor Romney is putting forth before the American people is the same thing that President Bush tried to do. It's not that we're blaming President Bush. It's just it's the same formula. The formula didn't work. It plunged us into a significant recession. And if you look at the last 60 years, Chris, the highest 10 years of job growth were when the marginal tax rate on the rich was at 50% or more. The lowest 5 years of job growth were when we were in the 30s. So there's no correlation between that and job growth.
And the reason we're bringing back W is because the suggestions being made over and over, and I understand why your candidate's doing that. Romney is suggesting he's a fresh start. And I would argue the argument on the other side is he's not a fresh start. He's a rerun. And if you keep suggesting Romney hasn't tried yet, we will say yes, but his plans have been tried. And you deny that's relevant. I think it's relevant.
I don't deny that that's relevant. I think he is a fresh start. I think he does have a prescription that's going to look in a different direction and move in a different direction.
So he's different than W. How's he a fresh start?
The one thing I did not hear from this president today was what he was going to do about spending. He went off on a litany of things that we should be investing in. More spending, more spending, more spending. No. That is the crux of our nation's problem right now. We're spending money we do not have. We are mortgaging the future. And I think Romney has a legitimate prescription for addressing the spending side of this equation, which a lot of folks on the left don't want to address.
Let's examine that,
That's
Chris.
what this big debate is going to be about.
What's Romney going to cut? Has he laid that list out yet?
Michael, in fairness.
I mean, there were no specifics from either of these candidates
today.
I agree
with that. Both speeches.
Let's be honest here.
Let me give you Michael's argument. His argument is this president, who wants to be president rather, is basically a Republican with the same supply side attitudes as the president we just saw 4 years ago. He says he doesn't have to say what the guy wants to do. And he doesn't have to say how he's different than W. He doesn't have to tell us anything about Romney except we have to give a new guy a shot.
So is Barack Obama going to tell us how he's different from Bill Clinton? Because Lord knows Bill Clinton didn't spend money like a drunken sailor.
He wants to be like Bill Clinton.
But that's my point. If you're looking at these two administrations, they're vastly different in how they approach spending.
And Michael, two things. The president did say in his speech that he has a plan to cut $4 trillion out of the deficit. And that was the big deal that he and Boehner were trying to put together.
Okay.
And we couldn't do it. And the president and Boehner will admit the president had a $4 trillion plus deficit reduction plan on the table. That's number one. And he reiterated that today for sure. And number two, on the flip side of the coin, Governor Romney cuts all of these taxes, which blows a big hole in the deficit, and really hasn't specified in any degree what he's going to cut to make up for that hole.
Let's go back to the president. Here's President Obama today saying what Romney is offering is nothing more than a Republican retread of the failed economic policies of the past. I say rerun. See, we differ on some things here. Let's listen.
The economic vision of Mr. Romney and his allies in Congress was tested just a few years ago. We tried this. Their policies did not grow the economy. They did not grow the middle class. They did not reduce our debt. Why would we think that they would work better this time?
How did you think he did today, Governor?
I thought he did a very good job in framing everything, very effective. But he didn't say anything that he didn't say in the jobs bill speech in October. Same stuff. But he did a much better job of framing it, putting it in context, and giving a little flow to it.
Now, you're with me. I'm with you, rather, because you're out front on this. I think he has to have a major picture. I think Michael's going to disagree with this because he thinks spending's the issue. I think investment's the issue. You got to build. And why we're behind everywhere in the everywhere in the world in terms of what we have is public sector development. We don't have it. We don't have the highways.
What are you building with? Where's the money coming from? What are you building with? Do you know how much it costs to build?
With the decision that the business is not making right now, that the consumer's not making. If both of them are not spending, somebody has to, or this economy will go completely stagnant.
Trillions of dollars on the shelf,
Michael,
because this economy is too weak to grow. Because the investor class will not invest in the policies that this president has put forth. It's that simple.
Michael, though, you have to look at the last three Republican presidents, President Reagan and the two President Bushes, to get out of the recessions that they dealt with. They both significantly increased government spending, all three of them. And that's a fact. The government spending went up, and that helped us get out of the recession.
And they also cut taxes. And they also cut taxes, which is why we have deficits.
And let me tell you, President Obama has said he's got a plan to take $4 trillion out of the deficit. Now, if you take $4 trillion out of the deficit and you invest $500 billion in investment in infrastructure.
Okay, Governor, here I think I want to talk to politics for a second, because it's the elephant that hasn't talked yet in this room. We haven't talked about. You know, I talked to a financial expert today who told me all about it. He has a lot of clients who are CEOs. They're pretty much admitting they're not going to, as you say, not going to invest till this president's gone. They're holding back. Now, you can argue whether it's punitive or smart business, but if business refuses to invest, if the consumer doesn't have the confidence that comes with that, the government then pulls back, as you advise now. We will have an economy which has basically decided to have an unending recession, because the business not spending and government's not spending and the consumer's not spending. We are dying economically, and that's what you want us to do, because that's the way to get another president.
It's not. I mean, it's not what I want us to do, nor does it is what Republicans want us to do.
You just said so. You were bragging about the fact business won't spend. You don't want the government to spend.
I'm not bragging about
Who is going to spend?
I mean, stating a fact is not bragging, Chris. You just said the CEOs that you've talked to have been saying the exact same thing. So this is not rocket science, nor is it confusing. It's not punitive.
Oh, yes,
Chris, would you make a bad investment if you know it's a bad investment? No. You don't see the policies.
Michael, what about
can I just finish?
Let me ask Governor. Let me ask the governor. Is business out there taking financial investments to help this president get reelected? Nobody's putting any money out on the table. $2 trillion they're sitting on.
And Michael, you'd agree Warren Buffett's a pretty smart guy. He says it's a great time to invest, and he's going to increase by $1 billion the money that his company is investing. So he's a pretty smart guy.
Because Warren Buffett's got the leverage to do that, but a small business owner does not necessarily have that leverage.
And President Obama has cut taxes on small business owners 18 times, Michael. 18 times.
Maybe he needs to cut it 19 because no one's feeling it and no one's believing it. And the other point that I think it's important to make, for all this blubber that we heard today coming out about what he's going to do, he had the opportunity in his grasp to do Simpson Bowls, and he blinked.
Wait,
he didn't take advantage of it. So when the president gets serious, then the small business community will get serious too.
Michael, you can't do Simpson Bowls without the Republicans agreeing to raise revenue.
The president can come out and say, this is my plan. He can come out and say, this is my plan, and he didn't do it.
You know you can't do Simpson Bowls unless the other side agrees to raise revenue. Boehner couldn't sell it to the wacky right wing.
It's not necessarily what you can do at times. It's what you're willing to do, and he wasn't willing to go out on point.
We have an interesting set of vocabulary words used here for the first time. I'm a sycophant. The president speaks in blubber. Thank you for that elevation of our discussion. It was a bad day, actually, for your crowd, Michael Steele. So I understand why you got a little overexcited tonight.
It wasn't a bad day. It was a good day.
Well done. Well done. Author of a great new book, A Nation of Wusses. We'll talk about that in a couple of times. We'll never stop talking about it. Thank you.